So that's why it's important to have God together. Now, boy, that was a lot. Now on to marriage, right? I wish we had the time to tell you everything I know. And I know they mentioned tonight even starting a second service on Thursday nights. That sounds great. It really does. But I'm a morning person, and it takes a lot for me to get energized in the evenings. I just want to tell you that. So if we start another one at like 9 o'clock, I'm going to be sleeping by the time I get to speak. I'm teasing. But it'll be great. But if I could tell you everything that I've learned in 13 and a half years of marriage, listen, there's a lot of nuances, a lot of little things I think will be great. But you know what? They work good for me and my wife. And they may not work well for you. So I want to stay away with that. Instead, I want to make some outlandish claims. Are you ready? Man, what if I told you that I understand women? Right? Clearly, by your laughter, you believe me. And I can already tell by the women who just sat up straight, like, oh, I want to hear this because this guy is about to get an earful after service. Right? Okay, woman, what if I tell you that I actually understand your husband? And it's actually rather simple. See, every woman in here is like, yeah, my husband's pretty simple. I can agree with that. Everyone agrees with that. There wasn't the laughter then. You understand, right? But listen, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying your husband's simple. I'm saying marriage done God's way is rather simple. In fact, radical marriage only has two things that we need to do, and that's it. And you know what's even better? Of those two things, you are only responsible for one of those things. So that is about as simple as you can break down marriage. Man, you didn't know it could be that simple, right? Listen, God is not about us failing, so he is going to make things simple and easy for us to go through. So one thing makes your marriage better. One thing. He created that, right? And we jumped into marriage willingly, at least most of us jumped into marriage willingly, and he wants us to succeed in it. So he made very simple instructions, and I'm going to give you those instructions. I want you to write this down, put it on your phone, take a picture of it when it comes up here. It's Ephesians 5:33, and whatever it may be, if you need to get this tattooed, if you want to talk to some of the ladies around here who give you those vinyl wall arts and put this up in your bedroom, do this because this is the most important verse for your marriage that you could possibly have. Ephesians 5, verse 33 says this, however, each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. Wow, that's crazy, right? God boils all of marriage down to these two things, love and respect. Love and respect. How great is that? How simple is that? Because we try to complicate it a lot, but God says, hey, love and respect. And if you do this, and it's even divided down by gender, if you do the one you're supposed to, guess what? It works out so much better. That's why having a man and a woman in marriage is so great, because we complement one another. We each have a job to do. I have something that I can give my wife. My wife has something that I need in return, and it's amazing, amazing union. And those things are different, but if we give those to our spouse, guess what? That's what brings in the loving feelings. All right? If we could do those little things, I'm not going to dance again. I don't know where that came from. But what a deal that we could have together, right? If we only have this one thing to do in marriage, it's going to go God's way. That is awesome. That is God making it simple so everyone can get it, because he wants us to succeed, like I said. Understand that tonight. God wants your marriage to be great. So it's not a difficult, like IKEA instruction manual that's only pictures that you can't quite figure out where it's going. It's not even an electoral college that you don't know who's going to win probably for the next 9 more days. Like, it is nuts at how this works. It is so simple. You know what? That's my favorite design principle as a whole, KISS. Have you ever heard that acronym, KISS? Keep it simple, Saint. We're going to go with Saint tonight because it's prettier. It is. But keep it simple, and that's the way God designed it. And if we understand this simple verse tonight, it's going to change our marriage into radical ones. How can I guarantee that? It's simple. It's really simple. See, if you're married right now and you feel like that you react negatively to your spouse more often than not, more often than you probably should, guess what? If we understand this verse, it'll change how we react to them. And you can literally stop the cycle you're on. Conflicts in your marriage are going to be less dramatic because of this verse. Right? Now, who doesn't want less drama in their lives? Because what it does is it gets to the root of our problem. Seriously, have you ever been in a disagreement with your spouse where it may have started on one day and you kind of fought about this thing, but it didn't end that time and it keeps going, and so you keep fighting with them, and the next thing you know, you're fighting and you don't even, you ever been there? Come on, every married couple has that moment. It's usually like the first year of your marriage. You get it. You don't know where it's going, and some of us, it keeps on going because we've never learned this verse. And it feels oftentimes like that battle, we've been fighting a different battle, right? Like we're talking about maybe the drapes, but there's really something underlying underneath there. That the reason why we can't agree on something so simple is because there's another problem at the root, and we don't understand what it is. Our communication fails because we're not giving each other what we need. And Ephesians 5:33 tells us what we need. You're not meeting his need to be respected, and you're not meeting her need to feel loved. Listen, this isn't just Bible stuff. People have figured this out too. Supposedly like the intellectual types. University of Washington spent years and a lot of money studying couples. In fact, they studied, 2,000 couples for 20 years. 2,000 couples. It's 4,000 people, right? And you know what? They did all this research. They piled it all together. And you know what they found out? Men want to feel respected. Women want to feel loved, right? 20 years, 4,000 people, and they came to this verse. That's a lot of money and time that if people who are really smart would just read the Bible. That's not a knock on universities because I have a PhD, but yes, it is. And we'll keep on moving. Men want to feel respected. You know what that means, women? That means not just saying that you respect your husband. That means showing it. Showing it by how you talk to him, how you talk about him to your friends, how you react to him. Women want to feel love, and I'll admit that's where it gets a little complicated, guys. I know I said it was simple, but women. And stop the amens. You're still married. They're a little bit more complicated, but here, I'm going to help you break it down. Ladies, I'm going to give this assignment for you. This is homework for you, right? Because I know men won't do it. I want you to write down this website. It is www.5lovelanguages.com. Right? So listen, man, I know I said one. Really, there's 5 love languages. You need to kind of get this. Your wife is going to go down tonight. She's going to click on that link. She's going to go there, and she's going to click on Learn Your Love Language, and she's going to take this profile test. And you know what's going to happen to that? It's going to tell her what those 5 love languages are. Of those, which ones is her most prominent love language. And then she's going to give that to you. And don't throw it away. Write this down because it is huge. Because if her love language is acts of service and you keep bringing flowers home Friday night thinking that that gift is going to buy you something, it's not going to work that way, all right? You got to know what really gets her excited, how she feels love, and this will help you a lot. So write it down, get there tonight. That's all I'm giving you on that. But whether you're getting along with your spouse tonight or not, it's time to figure these simple things out. Even if you're not married, so for those of you not married but one day want to be married, or maybe you just interact with other males and females in life, you need to know this because it's preparation. It's preparation for the times when we're in the storm, right? And kind of like a sailor in ports, if you've been in the Navy or you've ever owned a ship, right? You prepare in ports. You prepare while you're in the safety of the harbor. That way when you go out into the sea and the storm hits, you're prepared. Because if you go out in the sea and you're not prepared, then you just jump off the boat as soon as the storm gets there and you're like, well, now what? A lot of us approach marriage this way. We go out on our boat, we see the storm, we get scared, we jump off. We think it's time to leave. But that's not the way it's supposed to, because we're going to have those storms. 1 Corinthians 7, verse 28 even says so. You can kind of skip half of it. But however, those who get married at this time will have troubles. Literally, the Bible tells you, you get married, you're going to have troubles. I know, not rocket science, but God gets it. He's really smart like that. And if you get married, if you're living with someone else, right, you're going to have those troubles. And he even tells them he's trying to spare those problems. You see, we're all going to have those moments of storm, so it doesn't mean that you're in a bad marriage. I want you to hear that. If you're in a storm tonight, it doesn't mean you have a bad marriage. It means essentially you're alive. right? Because here's the newsflash. You can be in the will of God. You can be in the union that God brought in, right? You can be in the will of God, and it can be difficult. It can be difficult. If you don't believe me, go read the entire book of Job. It can be difficult when even you're following after God. So your marriage can be difficult. We're not wrong where we are in our relationships. We're just different. And that's a good thing, because if we were both the same, then why would we even need the other person? So we have to learn to navigate these storms, because they're going to come, and they're going to hit us, and we have to learn to navigate them. And my goal tonight is to help us learn to navigate those difficult times in our relationships using this one verse. Because we make this huge mistake in thinking because we're equal, and yes, get this, men and women are equal, but you know what? We're also different, right? We're not the same. We're equal, but not the same. Equal in God's eyes, absolutely, but we're not the same, and that was by his design. We're made different, and we're made to complement one another. Men, what's great about that verse is we're commanded in the Bible to love our wives. If you go back, it's agape love. It's the strongest kind of love you can get, right? It's sacrificial, unconditional love. No holding back. Women are not commanded to do that. Did you notice that? It's kind of funny, right? Because we always think marriage, relationships, it's all about the love. But women aren't commanded to do it. Not commanded to love us. Why is that? Right? Why is that? And here's why. You know why? Women, you're created to nurture. You're created, it's in your DNA to love. By nature. It is built in. Ask any child, hey, does your mom love you? They will say yes. Now, if you ask them if they like you, that might go yes or no depending on the day. But if they love you, yes. It's in their DNA. Women naturally love. So God doesn't need to command a woman to love her husband. He doesn't need to, because it's something they're already naturally designed to do. A woman will stop loving you only when you wound her. But if you don't, guess what? The good news is if you don't wound her, she can't stop but loving you, because that's who she is. That's who God designed her to be. That's literally God's gift to humanity. If you ask me, that's God's gift to me because I have an amazing, loving wife. That's just the way it works. So I encourage you, women, embrace that. That's a beautiful part of who you are. But here's the thing. When you start judging your husband because he's less loving than you, guess what? You're absolutely right. He is less loving than you. But it's not truly his fault, because it's not his nature to be as loving as you are. For us, it is a lot of work, gentlemen. We have to put in the time, and sometimes we forget this. We think it's just going to happen, that love is just going to happen in a relationship, but it's not. For a man, it is about that commitment to do it. This is why we are commanded to love, because we need to be told to go and do it. We have to work. It's not our nature. So I don't do naturally what my wife does. Right? But that's why it's God's command to us to go and love. So men, guess what? You got to work at it, and you now have a job. If you've never been told this in your marriage, that you have to go and you have to work at loving your wife, this is the first time that you're hearing that, then go and do it, because you can change your marriage tonight. That easy. And guess what? My wife, she doesn't do what I do either. Right? That's the truth. And here, to prove it to you, I have these ideas. Ready? So naturally, I give respect without reservation. That's what men do, right? We're created to respect other people. We have this code of respect, even a code of honor, if you will, amongst us. That's natural in it. Don't believe me? Watch a group of males sometime that get along, all right? Because it's actually the opposite when you watch them of this idea of respect, because men are weird like this, right? The closer I get to guys, you know what we do? We push that respect envelope just a little bit farther, all right? The closer I am to a guy, the more I know I could say something about him that would really agitate another guy, that would really make him mad and probably want to fight me. But because we're close, I could say it and we laugh it off, haha, good times, right? We push that respect envelope. That is the way we work, right? I can go up to a guy and say, hey, man, I can't tell the difference between your face and the back end of a dog. But you know what? we'll laugh about it, we'll hug and keep on going. Now, from a woman's perspective, we are absolutely awful. Right? Who would say that to their best friend? Right? Who would say that? Like, women don't do that because they naturally love, but men want this respect. But a man intrinsically knows that when we get close to one another, when we feel good with another man, like when we're starting to feel like, hey, you know what, that's my bro, it feels good to do that because now we know we can break that wall down of respect. It's no longer a thing where I have to stay back 6 feet from you because you might have COVID. No, I mean, because you might, I don't know why I say that stuff. But we don't have that same level of respect. We can get close. We can cross that respect line and start joking about it because it's kind of funny, right? We're close that way. Literally, when I tell my friend that his face looks like the dog's backside, I'm literally saying, hey, man, guess what? We're close, dude, right? That's all it is. That's what it means. Listen, now, I'd say that, but I'm also going to encourage you, women, don't go and try and do that tonight to your husband. Here's the reason. A man can say that to another man, but a woman says it. We intrinsically know now that's not right. That's just something wrong about it because her nature is to love me, and she's saying I look like the back end of a dog. No, this is wrong. So don't go and try that tonight, for those of you dating especially. Right? Because literally when we start doing that, we start making fun of each other, what we're doing is saying, hey, you know what? I want to be close to you. Right? I want to be able to break down that wall of respect that just says I can't get that close. It's really breaking that down. And so because of that, now I can say these things that normally be disrespectful, and we take them with a grain of salt, and we laugh about it because now we're close. We are buddies. And it does just work between between men, so women don't try it because we are wired differently. But listen, on the other side, for you single ladies out there, if a man picks on you, guess what? It may mean he wants to be closer to you. Don't blame me. That's the way God made us. But even in a disagreement with our wives, right? Men often respond by backing away. Think about this. How many times have you fought with your husband, and instead of continuing to engage you, he says, you know what, I don't want to fight about this. I'm done. Let me tell you why. See, as a man, we have this fight or flight instinct. So when we are in this disagreement and we're getting fired and everybody's getting kind of ramped up, when I say I don't want to fight about this anymore, what I'm really saying is I respect you so much, I don't want to go there. I respect you so much, I don't want to have this fight because I know where it goes. I don't want to fight with you. So it's all about the respect. But from the woman's perspective, you hear a guy tell you, hey, I don't want to talk about this. What you are hearing is, you must not care enough about me to go on and talk about this, right? You must not love me enough to go into this conversation. And so you see this guy backing away as that he doesn't love you, but really he's doing it out of respect. And because we have these different viewpoints, because we're two different kinds of people, we get a lot of conflict in our lives. You see, the problem is our wives, they see it like we don't care, but really it's we care so much that we don't want to go there. Now, to a man, that seems ridiculous, right? But women, I'm sure you know, it makes perfect sense. Psychologically, that's exactly what's going on. And here's the other crazy part. You know, a man on the outside could look perfectly calm. Right? I could stand here and you won't see anything go on my face but a smile, but my blood pressure and heartbeat are through the roof. And you know what that means when we get that way? That's really getting to our fight or flight instinct, and we get that far going. So we do have that. It's either going to fight or we're going to flight, and that is how we respond in those situations. Women, on the other hand, man, here's the crazy thing. All right, they could be all gone up in your business and crazy, but you know what? Their heart rate all the way down. It's an amazing thing that they found in the study. So they could be all what you would think would be ready to fight you in your face, but really they're pretty calm, right? On the inside, they are calm. And if we understand that we are different, we're going to respond differently, then we just have to learn how to use that to our advantage. You see, if we recognize it, we can control it, and we can start breaking out of the crazy cycle. See, here's the crazy thing. All right, my wife, very loving by nature. I'm very respectful by nature. But here's the crazy part. See, it's very natural for me to be unloving when I'm disrespected. And it's that way for almost every man. When they are disrespected, we have a hard time showing love because we have to work at it. Remember that we have to work at showing love. So if I'm being disrespected, I'm not going to be working too hard. And the flip side of that, it's very natural for my wife to be disrespectful when she's feeling unloved. Think about that. Because that essentially gives us the crazy cycle. That creates this crazy cycle. And the reason we get into fights that we can't get out of, because I'm up here and I need to give her love, but I can't give her love because she's not giving me respect. And it just keeps going, and we're in this crazy thing where it doesn't get away from it because I can't give her love if I'm not getting respect, and she can't give me love if she can't give me respect if I'm not giving her love. It just feeds off one another, and it's just a crazy cycle back and forth. And that's the reason why one simple argument over something simple like drapes can turn into a month-long thing that never ends. That's why there's this command from God to do these things that we're not naturally going to do. See, this command, this verse is given so that we can stop that cycle. It's as a warning, right? God commands us to do these things that the other one needs from us. My wife needs my love. I need her respect. And what's crazy is you can kind of look at it like we each have a tank of those, right? I got a respect tank and she's got a love tank. And if we're not filling those up, then we get drained out and we start fighting and butting heads more and more every day. And here's the fun part, because it's not my wife who's going to make the marriage work and break the cycle. It's not me who's going to make it on my own either all the time. So we got to start working together at it. Because what we got to do, instead of trying to think it's all on her or it's all on him, it's on us to be who God has called us to be and do what God has called us to do, commanded us to do in this verse. Because it doesn't say love your wife when she respects you. It doesn't say respect your husband when he loves you. It says, respect your husband, love your wife. And this is kind of awesome too. We can also do what God has called us to do for our spouse, regardless of what our spouse is doing for us. So if you're sitting here tonight and your spouse isn't even here, guess what? You can start practicing this now and see how it changes them. That's how you break the cycle, by just practicing this one thing. 3 weeks ago, Faith, please cover your ears. 3 weeks ago, Faith is the name of my wife, for those of you who do not know. Faith is the perfect name for a pastor's wife. And she's going to cover her ears now because 3 weeks ago, she was being unbearable.
He's coming over to me later, people.
I'm sorry, honey, but it's true, right? Now, men, you might have been there. Apparently, I couldn't do anything right. Like anything. I'm pretty sure I was breathing wrong. Anything right. So it just seemed like she was always on my case about everything. I'd come home from church throughout the week praying for, just safety as I walked through the door. Walking on eggshells while I was there, just tiptoeing around. And men, you don't need to give me any signs of sympathy. I know your wives are near, but I know you know what I'm talking about. And I don't want you sleeping on the couch tonight. But I'll be honest with you, it frustrated me. I was really frustrated. And so, you know what? I do what every good pastor does. I fight the battle where I'm supposed to. I get down on my knees, and this is what I pray to God, right? Please change her heart. Please change her heart toward me. And I'm thinking, working for God is kind of a good gig because, the boss, he could change a lot. He's pretty powerful. And, I think he's got, I don't know if I got some credits or something, but he should be able to show me a little favor in this. So in my head, I'm thinking, you know what? Ask him. He's going to change her. Life is going to be good tomorrow. I mean, surely I got these credits stored up and he can help me out, right? But instead, before I even finished my prayer that night, God flooded my heart and mind. You see, One of the things we do here often is counseling individuals who are going through these difficult times. In fact, if you're going to get married by one of us, we go through marriage counseling to kind of talk about a lot of these things. And so I'm sitting there praying, and what he floods my mind with is God asked me simply what I would say to someone in my shoes. Now listen, some days the boss is kind of annoying because you know what? A, he's always right. And B, he is very good at pointing to you and showing you what's wrong and what you need to change. And so this question, it hits home pretty good. You know, I'm thinking, you know what? I would tell that guy, if I was on the outside of this situation looking at it, I'd tell that guy to go and love her. To go and love her. Because that's how you fix this. Whatever is going on, that is how you fix this. Because you can't just fix her heart, but you can go and love her and see how that changes it. Yeah. And so listen, I don't need to go to the website. I already know my wife's love language. It's acts of service. So I know I need to go and serve her. So without telling her, because, you know, that's the good way to do it. Don't tell them that you're about to try this God experiment on them. I start sacrificing my day. And what I do is I go and I grab the honey-do list. And I start knocking off things on the honey-do list. Now, I will be completely transparent. I have a million things to do. And in my mind, there's a lot of stuff that's not getting done. But I'm working on this honey-do list because there's no one in my life more important than my wife. So I can put all those other things on the back burner for at least a day to knock off some things. And I think I knocked off three things of her honey-do list in a day. And I mean, there were moments where I honestly felt like I had so much more important things to do. Change my attitude? Hang on, we're getting there, man. Calm down. It's my story. So I knocked these 3 things off the list, right? And you know what? Even I have these other things, right? Like I know there is a buck walking in the woods right now because I spent a day knocking off the honey-do list instead of hunting. So I know there's a lot of sacrifice here, and you know what? What was funny is that night, the night that after I spent the day knocking off the honey-do list, she didn't get on my case. Didn't have to walk on eggshells. It was pretty good. The next day, she actually initiated a hug. I'm just saying. Mission accomplished, right? Yes. So you see, God has already told us what to do to have a successful marriage. But the deal is we got to act on it, right? Our spouse actually becomes irrelevant when it matters what she or he is doing. It matters what we are doing ourselves. And we can change our relationship by how we behave. Oftentimes, we're waiting on them to change, just like my prayer, right? Change her heart, God. But really, according to the Bible, it's up to us. Yeah. Unconditional love. Right? That's what he's calling for, agape love. Unconditional means I don't have to wait on her to show me respect to do it. I just need to go and show her love. That's right. And unconditional respect, meaning your husband doesn't have to show you love until before you show him respect. You can just go and start respecting him now. In 1 Peter 3, women are actually asking Peter how to get their ungodly husbands to listen to them. And you know what Peter tells them? Give them respectful behavior. But they don't deserve it, right? That's what we often think. They don't deserve that respectful behavior. That's not what God says. He doesn't say anything about whether they deserve it or not. He says, go and do it. That is the command. Respect your husbands. That is the command. Love your wife. It's not about what they deserve. It's about what God has called you to give. Because that's the example God sets, right? He loves us first. He acts first. I know it's counterintuitive, right? Our culture doesn't go this way, but that's what God has called us to do. If we want to be radical, truly radical with our relationships, with our marriage, it's about not doing what the world says to do, but doing what God says to do. We didn't deserve to have love and respect, but God still showed it to us. And this is what God has called us to be, and that's how we win the heart of our spouse. Because you're never going to win your spouse over with a great argument. I don't care if you create a 10-point PowerPoint presentation and show them all the points why you're right. You're not going to win them over. You win them with love or respect. That's it. So don't compromise this truth, but give in to God's commands. Unconditional love, unconditional respect. It's not about them, it's about you. And maybe that's the hardest thing for us to see. Right? Men, listen, this means that there's no circumstance, there's no situation that can get you to hate your wife. None. And that's very hard for us because we live in like they deserve it culture. It's not easy. But you know what? That person doesn't cause you to be unloving because they don't control your actions. Only you do. They don't decide how you respond. Only you do. So that's saying, you know what? I love you in spite of everything else. I love you despite it all. That needs to be every married man's mantra. Right? Now, women, this means that there's no situation, no circumstance, no reason that you can cause to not show your husband respect, that you cannot show him respect, that you would show him even contempt as a human being. Because your mantra, your motto from now on is I respect you no matter what. They don't cause you to be disrespectful. Yeah, you might feel like being disrespectful, but they don't cause you. You get to make that choice. Don't get me wrong, I'm not giving them a get out of jail free card because there are situations where we don't let things happen, right? It's, I love you so much that I can't allow you to commit adultery. I respect you so much. I believe in you so much that I can't allow you to do that anymore. Those things will happen. So I'm not going to say just by doing it's going to be easier. You have to let go and let them do crazy, bad things. But I am calling you to start being who God has called you to be in that relationship. And see, what happens is when we approach our spouse in this way, what that does is truly it brings them under conviction. Think about this. If this is what they need, right? If they need respect or they need love and you're giving it to them, but they're not giving you what you need, God starts convicting their hearts pretty quick. It took 12 hours or less for my wife to switch hers. It may be just as fast for yours. Because the world's going to tell you that you show your husband disrespect to motivate him into loving you. Right? That's what they want you to believe. Watch any TV show. That's what they want you to believe, but it always backfires. Because that's not what God has called us to do. And the world says that you need to be unloving until that woman starts showing you more respect. But it won't work either. And see, what's interesting is in our relationships, we both have good intentions. Right? We both want to work. No one goes into marriage thinking, man, I want this not to work. Like, no one does that. We all both go in wanting it, desiring it to be successful, wanting to have that perfect, loving marriage. We both want that good result, but we can't achieve that result. We can't achieve that result we both want without going through the channel God designed. So if you're not giving the love or if you're not giving the respect, you're not going to get there. It ain't easy, absolutely. But it's also not as tough as we think. So we just don't do what the world says and we start getting into what God says. That's how we break that crazy cycle of disrespect and no love, disrespect and no love, disrespect and no love. And here's the crazy thing. Now, a lot of this comes from some teachings from a guy called Dr. Emerson Egerich, is his name, who has a whole teaching on this love thing, right? Love and respect. And he even surveyed 7,000 people and asked them when they're in a fight with their spouse if they felt unloved or disrespected. Now, 83% of the men said disrespected. 72% of the women felt unloved. Now, get this, because if we start at point zero, right, because we're in this argument, this discussion together, we're at the same part, and men go 83% this way and women go 72% this way, we are pretty far apart. Even though we're fighting about the same thing, we're really far off. And the crazy part is, listen, men, We don't realize that we're being unloving because we're so busy feeling disrespected. And women don't realize that they're being disrespectful because they're so busy feeling unloved. We're so busy not getting what we need that we don't realize we're not giving what our spouse needs. And part of the problem is, right, you think you're giving love because that's what you need, right? This is often true for women especially. Right? You think you're giving love and you think that's going to make everything better. You think your husband's going to start loving you more because you're giving love, but you're giving him not what he needs in that moment. Now, don't get me wrong, we both need love and respect, absolutely. But when things are difficult, your husband needs respect more than love. And men, we're thinking the same thing, right? We think we're giving our wives respect by backing off, but that's not what she needs. She needs love. We have to stop seeing each other through our needs and get back to this basic biblical principle. One verse. That's why it's so important. We should have this tattooed and placed on walls across our house. And you know what? I think Crosspoint needs a merchandise store. That's just true, right? Because we're always running out of it. I'm fully believing this. Like the hats, we even talked to a friend today, talked about we need some jogging pants, you name it, we need it all. But I also think we need this. I think we need to have pink shirts that just say love and blue shirts that just say respect. And then every time we get into a fight as a couple, you go up to your dresser, you pull it out, you put it on. And that way it's just a quick reminder that, hey, I need this. Okay? Every time. Because if we do this and we start understanding what our spouse needs more than anything else, it'll start changing our relationship. And it just takes one of us to realize it. Now, it's very important I say this because we do all need love and respect. I don't want you to think that men only need respect and women only need love. You need both. But in those moments of difficulty, one comes out far more stronger than the other. And if we don't realize it, we're just making things worse. And here's the crazy thing. If you feel disrespected or unloved, so does your spouse. And guess what? You're both probably right. Because of that, you get that tension in your relationship. All because we don't realize which lens we're viewing it from. So that's the first time you've heard this tonight. Use it. Because it can truly change your marriage now. It's time we break this cycle. And see, our problem becomes in our marriages, or our relationships, when we don't believe we are valued because we're not getting our needs met. We're not getting our love tank filled up or our respect tank filled up. And that just builds up over time. And it's not like your partner doesn't love you, or is a bad person. They just look at conflict differently than you do. And maybe no one's wrong, but you're just not getting what you need, and it fuels the fire. And that wears on us, right? I mean, that conflict, it truly wears on us. We can't even watch an election this week without growing tired, let alone someone we truly care about. I don't know about you, but Trump or Biden is never going to come to my house and make my life better. My wife, she's going to be sleeping right next to me, hopefully, tonight. So stop listening to the lies that you hear that it's easier if you walk away, or that this relationship will never work, or maybe we weren't meant to be together, because guess what? Whether you thought you were meant to be or not, God joined you in that union. God joined you together. So don't believe those lies. Those lies are designed to keep you in that crazy cycle. If we break it, guess what? We're going to start enjoying our marriages a lot more. Not just a little bit more, but a whole lot more. Because, well, guess what? You're starting to gain your complement to your life. See, from the very beginning, Adam and Eve, you know why Eve was created? Because God couldn't find a helpmate, someone who could help him that was suitable for him. That's right. Your spouse is your perfect helper through life. We just need to understand how we view each other and how we handle the difficult parts. Because if we start doing that and we start living biblically, guess what? Marriage gets pretty happy. And here's some fun. 60%, they say 60% of those of you who raised your hand earlier today who are married right now are feeling in this situation. One of you feels disrespected. One of you feels unloved. And perhaps 20% of us, they say, are feeling both. At least feeling disrespected. Now, 1 Peter 3, he addresses marriages, and this is a great thing because he says wives are to respect their husbands again. So wives, you're told twice in the Bible to respect your husband. That's kind of makes it a big deal. All right, that's who we are, who we're programmed. But it also says, husbands, honor your wife. Right? Peter doesn't even get into the love aspect of it because love is complicated. And he knew that there's at least 5 love languages, and he didn't have time for that in the passage. So I don't know about that, but he knew it was difficult. So he just says honor and respect. And I think that's crazy because you know what? Peter walked with love literally in the flesh for 3 years. So if anybody knows about it, he would know about love. But he says instead, honor and respect. Because you need those more than anything else. Right? You're not always going to have the butterflies in your stomach. You're not always going to feel that little tingly feeling when you see them. You're not always going to be in that honeymoon phase. But if we learn to respect one another regardless, it changes our marriage. Your spouse, it'll change them too. Honor them. Because the world wants us to focus very much on our feelings. Do you ever notice that? Even in this election, we're exhausted right now because we are emotionally invested in this election. We also get exhausted in our marriage because we're emotionally invested, and we want to look at that. A lot of people want you to feel, oh, if you don't feel in love with them anymore, well, then maybe it is time you call it quits. That's not what the Bible tells us to do. It says respect them regardless. See, we shouldn't need to have the feelings as much as the actions. So what if I told you the best way to have a radical marriage, the best way to love your husband is to respect who he is, and that'll start meeting his need. And the best way that you can meet the needs of your wife is to give her love. Start doing this, and I promise you your life, your marriage is going to change. Your relationship will change. Now listen, like I said, much of what I talked about tonight comes from this Dr. Engerich, and he says a lot more about it. And I don't believe that we could fit it all until tonight, and I know we're going on a long time here, so listen, what we've done, we've got a lot of resources around this. We believe the church should be unified, and as we grow, and if you look around, we are growing. I know we kid and talk about a second Thursday night service, and if that happens, we do it, but we are growing, and the one thing that I have noticed every time we take this moment, when we take a big giant leap and we start growing like this, every single time, what follows it immediately after is the devil attacks. And you know where he attacks first? The home, the marriages. And break that apart, because if he can break the family unit apart, he breaks down everything God has stored and he's designed, right? Marriage is God's covenant. And so if the devil can break it apart now, it breaks apart all the momentum of God's church. So I don't want to just leave you on this. I think it's so important that as a family unit, we are unified for what's to come. The devil wants to break it down because if he can break down the family unit, he breaks down the church. He breaks down the way that God designed us to interact with him. So I encourage you, sign up, go, because there's nothing greater than a happy marriage. So no fancy way, no crazy closing tonight. I just want to pray for you, because if we get this, if our marriages around this church are happy and joyful, you know what a testimony that is to what God can do? And it's one simple verse. You only have one thing to take away from tonight and do to your spouse tonight. The change is everything. So let's pray. Lord, I do fully understand and believe, God, that every time you make a big move in your church, the devil is there to try to trip us up. And God, I understand that marriage, that union that you created is one of those places. Lord, even from the very beginning, right? The devil supersedes Adam's authority and goes and talks to Eve first. And because Adam doesn't step up, Lord, that's where we get the great fall. So tonight, Lord, we want to correct that. And we're correcting that, God, by putting you first and going what you say in your word, in our relationships, in our marriages, Lord. So tonight, God, we want to take this simple verse, the one thing that you've given each of us to do, not just take it to heart, Lord, but to take it to action. So God, tonight, I pray that you help men to love their wives. Give us the strength, Lord, to do it even when it's difficult, God. Help us to understand and see who our wives are, and help us to meet that, Lord. Help us to feed that so their love tank is full and our marriage becomes bliss. And Lord, for the women, God, I know it can be difficult to, regardless of what they may be doing, Lord, but to respect them. Because of that, Lord, we know that you're going to bless the unions across your church. So we praise you and we thank you for that movement right now, for the way that you are changing marriages tonight. Thank you, Jesus. In Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen. All right, be sure you check out that paper on your way out and join us Sunday.